Hello, everyone, and thank you for sharing some time with Exedion PVX today. My name is Dan Hernandez, and a quick bio is that I've been in the industry for 20 years on the NPM and application-aware performance side of the fence, and I've been out there assisting clients and industry organizations in their efforts to mitigate defects on the wire. Hence, what we'll be talking about today is Exedion's Skylight PVX solution, and I'll be going through a demonstration of workflows and what we call our 4 clicks to resolution, and provide that as a kind of a high-level demo for the teams out there and the people that are going to spend time with me in this session. So let's talk a little bit about Exedion and who we are. So Exedion, we've been around since 2005. And we're a global company, as you can see from the visuals on this slide. And on the service provider side, we've had a market share of 75%. And that's tied to however many companies that are stated on the visual. That's 84 plus over 40 patents. And that speaks a lot about our engineering growth and our steadfast commitment to customers and the engineering experience through technology and growing that technology. Also, what you can see about the enterprise segments is that we're agnostic. So that speaks very well to our capabilities, that we can walk into all these different verticals with the same suite and really help the organizations out for resolving issues on the wire or helping rein in business costs due to enterprise degradation states. So let's move on, and we'll continue to talk about the capabilities. So moving to PVX, and what we're going to be talking about is our 24/7 monitoring capability, Skylight PVX. These are our 4 pillars. So within these 4 pillars, we at PVX/Exedion believe that we can drastically help mitigate situations on the wire, mitigate those situations in the organizations where pools of people are brought in to create in some areas, or in some people would know it as war rooms or situation rooms. And that what we've come to find out with regards to attempting to troubleshoot faster is that some tools or organizations are having a tough time knocking down those service degradation situations they find themselves in. So with the PVX tool, you're going to see shortly during the demo is our ability realistically to provide that rich data set in front of the teams of folks and have them assess the situation. So mean time to resolution and other acronyms that fall under that, like mean time to innocence, really are drastically reduced. And that's just a great thing for business owners and portfolio owners to understand of our capability. From a proactive monitoring perspective, we are a 24/7 company. So with that comes a proactive approach, which lets you understand which business critical applications may be abhorrent with their behavior. So if they deviate from normal, it's the ability of the tool to send you information that addresses that and puts you right away into the context of what the problem is. So with that said, it also provides, who should own these types of situations that occur on the wire. So from a collaborative perspective, that's really where we want to understand how good a tool can be for the organization. So with that said, collaborating is really the whole enterprise. It's from the service desk, it's to the NetOps team, it's to the DevOps team, and also the portfolio owners. The ability of the tool to take those rich data sets and ratio them down to just the signal, what is wrong versus noise, and then propagating that up as part of project plans. If you want to add a PDF or a report to your work, you can go ahead and do that with the tool quite easily with just a single click during your efforts to do triage. And with that, obviously, all those efforts that I've been speaking to is the ability to reduce risk. Or defects. In some cases, a lot of organizations use the word defect. So that's where we are with those 4 pillars and how we can help in a lot of different migration studies and different projects that you have. We all know that you're collapsing and expanding data centers. We also know that Virtualization has been out there for quite some time and still is leading the charge out there as far as reducing costs in data centers or footprint. And so we'll show examples and speak to examples of how we assist with the virtualization capability within PBX for those kind of projects that you have. So once again, the big thing that I like to talk about is the collaboration and troubleshooting faster. We want to get the bottlenecks highlighted or percolated to the proper team as soon as possible, and then the team can really go into action and start knocking things down. So let's talk about PBX, and we're going to go over just a little brief review of how it works. So as with any monitoring tool or 24/7 tool, what we're going to need from the client and or your organization is a feed of data and or flow of information. So via mirrors, spans, and or taps, you provide us a feed into our listening engine. And our listening engine can be associated to a hardware device and or it can be a virtual device. It's really transparent to the end user who's using our screenshots and or our dashboards when they're doing their studies, their monitoring. And then what we do from that point there is once we receive that information on the wire, we send that to our data store. And from our data store is where the end user would log in and go to an HTML page to go ahead and start viewing data and start looking at their enterprise. It's very straightforward. And so if there is a need, and there is probably a need in most organizations for that visibility within a virtual host, then we can propagate the capability of listening to that infamous east-west traffic and bring that into the data store also. So right then and there, we're very nimble and we're very wide in our capabilities for listening on the wire and bringing back that data to you. We have an appended capability, Flow Broker, but that will not be part of the conversation today. It is a very lightweight way for us to redirect traffic from a switch port and or from a circuit. So we'll talk about that in future webinars. But today we're going to focus on the PBX side of the house. Last but not least, and what's very keen to a lot of organizations today is REST APIs, open APIs, and realistically integration. This speaks to a lot of organizations that have data analysts or data scientists that really want to get into the intrinsic information of our data sets and perform studies of a different nature with that information. It also allows us to integrate with other tools quite easily, and it once again gives that richness of data more urgency for these kind of individuals and organizations that need to speak to that information and provide that information. So the unique approach that PBX brings to the industry today is the robustness of data that we can provide and realistically how lightweight we truly are. So let's go back, let's say 10 years, and the push in the industry from the NPM perspective with that overlapping capability into APM was stream to disk, and that also fell into another acronym, DPI. So deep packet inspection and stream to disk came to the forefront, and a lot of companies did well with that. But then what started occurring is that as enterprises grew and they became far more disparate, multiple data centers, hybrid approaches, containers, virtualization, all of a sudden the stream to disk and the heaviness of the approach started impeding capabilities and or customers' abilities for getting information on the wire. So with PBX, we just stayed very nimble. We stayed very lightweight, but we became very, very deep in our capability with extracting that layer 2 through layer 7 information across the enterprise. So with that said, providing virtual captures and remote locations instead of shipping out extremely heavyweight boxes with large data stores wasn't required by us. And so introducing a very high frequency parsing engine of that wire data and sending into the data store all of a sudden showed great capabilities moving forward into organizations that required quite a landscape of listening within their infrastructure. So to the far right, you can peruse those numbers and values, and later we can have discussions about going on site and or providing that capability into your organization and vetting out those capabilities. But the tool is very nimble, very wide, and very lightweight, and this is the unique approach that PBX brings today. It is something that needs to be done because the industry is changing, and it is changing rather quickly. So what I'm going to do right now for our audience, if everyone can catch a breath from me speaking at this fast fashion, I'm going to go ahead and perform a few keyboard clicks and get us into the demo system. And here we have the PBX tool and the HTML page that propagates when you launch the tool. So let's talk about this just a little bit, and we're going to begin what we've been touting on the introduction of the tool about the 4 clicks to resolution. And this would be the first page that you would bring up. And I just want to spend some time letting everyone know what this heat map is showing you and the capabilities that we bring to bear. So first and foremost, history, the ability to go back in time to review all the metadata that we've taken from the wired information and put into our data store and make available to you. So we do have the ability to go back in time, which is tantamount in knocking down problems within the infrastructure, and then providing that information at certain rep rates to you. Do you want to look at it from these different perspectives of time? For tactical folks who are always on the wire and putting out fires, it's important for them to be able to confidently say, hey, it's a 3-day weekend, I'm going home, I'm going to come back, and if I need to go back in time and address a service ticket and or look at situations that occurred on the wire during this 4-day holiday, 3-day holiday, you can do so. You can go back in time and feel confident that you'll have that data necessary to knock down issues. The heat map here is an example of our business critical applications. Business critical applications are stated because of the fact that we have organize them such that they're going to receive the capability associated to them to give you boundaries. So this heat map is providing boundaries of the application's performance within the stated transaction times that you've brought up. So meaning your beginning and end time, overtime, an hour or a week. Here you have the efficiencies of that service across the wire. So this is an average across this timestamp that I'm showing you, but importantly, every time slice that we're showing here that is in violation or not in violation of a SLA is being provided to you. So you can look at EURT, which stands for end user response time. Round trip time in both directions is your latency. And then we have server time. So you can just hover your mouse and you can understand at which time slice that you are having a really exaggerated end user response times. And so once again, we're talking about all your services, and so we're tiering out all the applications, and this is a really good way to just understand where your bottlenecks are. The first and foremost thing that we as troubleshooters want to understand is we want to understand if it's a pandemic issue or if it's a systemic issue. And so if everything's red, quite obviously we have a pandemic issue, and every buzzer and every bell and whistle is going off in your enterprise. But in these cases where you have really subtle service degradation, then is when we have a tool like this that can come in and concisely tell you where you're having these issues. And so that's where we would begin. So I'm going to provide for that series of 4 clicks and talk through them. So we're going to go after this unique ERP front-end system, and what I'm going to bring up is the application dashboard. The application dashboard really is the holistic view of everything that is occurring to that specific application. So this is once again the ERP front end, and I'm just hovering my mouse, which is a bad presentation skill. But nonetheless, I just want to let you know that we're still centric to the ERP front end. And here we're looking at gross, I guess we can state that these are gross capabilities of the server with respect to response time. Now, this is really keen for us to understand with PBX is that we're actually allowing you to understand whether you're having a network app or client situation here. So if I was to go to the legend and filter out server response time, across the enterprise, the ERP front end, realistically, from a network perspective and a client perspective, is actually behaving rather well. So anywhere up to, with the exception of this 1 second for data transfer time, we're realistically, working within the boundaries of an application. But the graph shows a lot more information to that. So at this time frame, at this timestamp, at 8 minutes and 49 seconds, we have really a low number of transactions. And so that's kind of, that kind of makes you come to think like, so the server is acting very strangely, exaggerated response times from a perspective of client, creating a connection and or a transaction with that server, and the transaction times are exaggerated. And what we're also bringing back in the application dashboard is which servers, this can be a number of servers, but in this case it's unique. This is just one singular server hosting that ERP application. To the right, we're showing you all the affected and or possibly affected locations. So once again, we're stopping that war room situation right now. We don't need to call up everyone. We don't need to start realistically bringing teams of people on calls or anything like that. We have a situation that's really systemic to Lil. Everyone else within a certain degree is working within the boundaries of their SLA. So all the other remote locations with respect to the ERP front end are behaving within those boundaries. Lil is our exception point here. So this is what the visuals of the capability are now sending the tactical person to where to go. So all this tactical person would need to do now is just go ahead and click on Lil, and this would be that third click in our capability as to showing you what's going on with the Lil with respect to the ERP front end. So this is everyone at Lil, the remote location, that is experiencing problems, and pretty much it is really an exponential problem here at Lil. And so we're giving you from that time slice what is occurring to all the users at Lil. So you can see really abhorrent behavior of that server, and it still remains to be that same server. And now what we're doing is we're breaking it out by clients. So as you can see from the columns, and all our columns in every graph or screen or map that we show you that has columns all can be sorted by ascending, descending. But in this case, it's very straightforward. We have some users that have extremely exaggerated end user response times. And so everyone should realistically be honed in on these IP addresses which equate to end users. So right now we've gone from a heat map, an SLA that is in violation. Where are they? We found them to be in Lil, and now we have isolated 4 users within that time slice that have had this exorbitant server response time centric to this server. One can say that realistically right now a person can just go ahead and snapshot this at the service desk level and export this to a PDF and send that to the proper person that's on the dev side or is a sysadmin for that web server and begin their forensic work, and they would go into the tool and they would go take it to the last mile. So here we have the ability to go into that user and go ahead and look at this one specific client and attempt to understand that out of his 15.8 seconds of end user response time, the brunt of it has been spent on that server. So 14.6 seconds taken away from end user response time, that's quite a bit of issues related to that unique server. So let's go into the magnifying glass and just click on that. And what we're going to do now is bring up realistically that user and his experience or her experience on the wire specific to the ERP front-end application. And so it states emphatically that this person is having an issue. If this person had called in the service desk, you would actually see that they are indeed having an issue that's centric to some infrastructure as far as a server is concerned. And then the ability for the last click of the 4-click scenario would be to go into HTTP and vet this information out. But most importantly, by scrolling to the far right, when we have violations, and I would form this, I would collaborate with my sponsor in any organization that I'm looking into, and what we can do is we can set off realistically predetermined and predefined packet captures, so one can go and just click on this PCAP that is waiting for them when they come back to the office or during their day of trying to help out end users, and they can open up this PCAP and use their tool of expertise and go into the PCAP. But nonetheless, it's quite emphatic that this user tied to a specific server is having a raft of problems. The last click would be to just go into HTTP for this user, for this day, within that hour, and here are all the transactions that this user has been attempting to perform on the wire specific to that application. So if I was to go into, I'm going to go and look at response time versus hits, and now one can see with our capability of PVX, the capability to do a lot of things from this page. This is very forensic now. Now, from here, we can say these are specific URLs that have really brought to bear a lot of issues time-wise to this user. And this information right from here can be swiped and sent into a dev person. We're helping you understand the makeup of the page that the person has landed on. One of the things that's keen to us and some developers and sysadmins is to go ahead and inspect the HTTP header and bring this information back to a person who's in the know and needs to see this kind of information. Once again, just head up and just go ahead and send this out as a PDF or snapshot it. So I'm going to go back because we want to show the depth of the tool. We showed how fast we can get to a person's problems on the wire. We obviously went to a specific user in 3 clicks, but we highlighted that specific user in 2. But from here, the openness of the tool is really what's keen to a lot of companies that are now engaging with PVX. And so from this view, we associate transactions to a server, and we're giving you the calculations on their time spent on the tool, whether it was good or bad. But most importantly, just to be very nimble, and you can filter in on any one of these situations that, 300 and 400 and 500 series errors for HTTP, and we do this for a lot of different applications. So there is the ability to look at any status of the URLs that the team is going to, all the methods. If you want to filter on just unique transactions within HTTP for that individual, you can go ahead and do so. Click, highlight your method, and hit search again. Another thing that's most important to organizations is the filtering. Instead of relying on a PCAP, where they're doing the same thing in a PCAP, but what we've done for you already is we've provided you a pre-filtered data capture in a visual form. So that speaks to a lot of the capabilities and depth that the tool can go into. Once again, if need be, just go ahead and click and generate the PDF and send this to a unique person in the organization, and they'll be able to take it to the rest of the way. They'll log into the tool because it is a multi-tenant capability. Send it to a DevOps or a sysadmin person. Let them work on that situation. So I've taken up 25 minutes of your time, and I'm thankful and grateful for that. Thank you very much.